There's a particular kind of quiet that only exists in an office after everyone else has gone home. The overhead lights are off, except for the warm little lamp on my desk, glowing soft and amber like a tiny campfire in a sea of empty cubicles. Outside, rain taps gently against the panes, slow and steady, like a lullaby someone forgot they were singing. I work in the archives department, organizing old records and forgotten paperwork, so the company's data stays neat and findable. Not glamorous work, but I love the stillness of it, being the last one in the building, sipping my tea while the rest of the world sleeps. Every evening before I leave, I follow the same little ritual. I stack my folders, I straighten my desk, and I always make sure my office printer is powered down with its own switch. An old habit my first manager taught me years ago. Never leave the machines humming when you're not there to hear them, she used to say. That habit is exactly why, one rainy Thursday night, I noticed something was wrong the moment I heard it. Thursdays were always my late nights. I had a stack of old procurement files to sort, and the rain outside made it easy to lose track of time. My tea had gone cold in its mug, and my desk lamp cast its same warm little circle of light around me. I glanced at the clock. 11:58 p.m. I told myself I'd finish this last folder and head home. And then, right at midnight, I heard it. A soft click, then a low, gentle hum, the unmistakable sound of a printer waking up. My printer, the one I always powered down before I left. I looked over, half expecting to see a blinking error light or some kind of glitch. Instead, the little screen glowed to life, and the machine began to whir peacefully, warming up its rollers with the calm, mechanical patience of something that had done this 1,000 times before. It didn't occur to me until much later that the printer had only ever done this on nights I happened to still be sitting at my desk. Then one single page slid out. Just one. I walked over slowly, more curious than afraid. The room was so quiet that even my footsteps sounded loud against the carpet. I picked up the page, and there it was, a block of text, mostly financial figures, with a handful of lines highlighted in soft yellow. No sender name, no date, no department stamp, just a strange transaction code, sitting quietly at the bottom of the page, like a signature, with no name attached. Then, just as gently as it had started, the printer powered itself off. Click, silence again, as if it had never happened. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the rain, feeling strangely calm rather than frightened. And the next night, at exactly midnight, it happened again. And the night after that, and the night after that, every single night, one page, always highlighted, always a transaction code, always at the stroke of midnight. I could have been scared. I could have unplugged the printer and pretended none of it happened. But something about it felt less like a ghost story and more like an invitation. A quiet little puzzle left for me, and only me, to solve. So instead of running from it, I leaned in. I started keeping the pages in a soft leather folder, one for each night, dated by hand in the corner. On slow evenings, wrapped in my blanket with a fresh cup of chamomile tea, I'd lay them all out across my desk like pieces of a very patient jigsaw puzzle. At first, they looked like nothing, small accounting discrepancies, tiny rounding errors, a few cents here, a few dollars there. The kind of thing anyone would glance over without a second thought. But the transaction codes kept repeating. Certain vendor names kept resurfacing. Certain dates lined up with certain contracts. Night after night, cup of tea after cup of tea, I began connecting the threads. Each page, I realized, was never meant to be the whole story on its own, just a single loose thread, a coordinate on a much larger map. What looked like harmless noise was actually a quiet trail, a trail that led toward a handful of massive procurement contracts worth millions of dollars that had been slowly, carefully inflated over the years. Not through anything dramatic, just small, repeated adjustments. The kind of thing that's easy to hide if no one is looking closely, and impossible to prove with just one page. But easy to see once you had 100 of them, laid out side by side. But I was looking closely. Every night at midnight, something or someone had been quietly handing me the map. Then one night, the pattern broke. Midnight came. The printer clicked on, warmed up, hummed exactly as it always did. And then it went silent. No page, just the soft whir of an idle machine, and then darkness again. I sat there for a long moment, oddly unsettled by the absence of something I'd come to expect. Had it noticed me watching? Had someone found it and shut it down? I almost convinced myself the strange little ritual was over for good. But the following night, at midnight, it printed 2 pages instead of 1, as if simply making up for lost time. The second page held a name I hadn't seen before, tucked into a vendor list I'd overlooked. It was the missing piece that finally tied the smaller contracts to the larger ones. Whatever had paused, it hadn't stopped. It had only been waiting for me to look somewhere new. Of course, digging into the past has a way of drawing attention in the present, though it took a few weeks before anyone noticed. It started small. A senior manager, someone several levels above me, stopped by my desk one afternoon. He was polite, even warm, the kind of calm, practiced friendliness that makes you want to trust someone immediately. "I heard you've been pulling some old procurement files," he said, smiling gently. "Just curious what you're working on." I explained, just as calmly, that I'd noticed some irregularities, small errors, that seemed to connect to larger patterns. He nodded along, still smiling, and told me not to worry about it. "Those are just system glitches," he said. "Old software, old servers, nothing to lose sleep over." I wanted to believe him. He said it so smoothly. But something about the way his eyes lingered a moment too long told a different story. Over the following weeks, small things began to shift. My access to the old procurement archive was quietly restricted, a technical change, easy to explain away as routine maintenance. A folder of digital backups I'd been keeping on the shared drive simply vanished, without so much as an error message. And then, about a month after our conversation, came the notice: a department transfer, effective the following month. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just a soft, administrative nudge moving me away from the archives, away from those files, away from the midnight pages. It would have been easy to feel afraid, easy to wonder if I was about to lose the very job I loved so quietly. But I reminded myself that fear rushes, and the truth doesn't need to. So I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply thanked him for the update, went back to my desk, and reached for the one thing they couldn't quietly delete: the physical folder of yellow highlighted pages, tucked safely in my desk drawer, growing every single night. Instead of confrontation, I chose documentation. Every night, I logged the exact time the printer activated. I saved the server records showing the print jobs. I cross-referenced every transaction code with the company's official contract database. I built it slowly, patiently, the same way I organize any archive, with care, with order, and without a single wasted word. When it was finally ready, I didn't send an angry email. I didn't make accusations. I simply requested a quiet meeting with internal audit and the legal compliance team, and I laid the folder on the table. They were skeptical at first, until they saw the pattern. Page by page, code by code, the evidence lined up perfectly with years of inflated contracts. It didn't take long for the truth to unfold. Here's the part that still gives me a peaceful little shiver, even now. The printer wasn't haunted. It wasn't magic. It was something far more human than that. Years earlier, before I'd even joined the company, a brilliant IT engineer, someone known for being quiet, thorough, and endlessly careful, had discovered early signs of the very same corruption. He'd tried the ordinary channels first: a flagged email here, a quiet word there. But at a company where every email was archived and every server change was logged and reviewed by the very people he suspected, anything digital could be found, questioned, or quietly deleted. A single sheet of paper, printed locally in an empty room at midnight, left nothing for anyone to trace back to him. So, knowing he was retiring soon, and worried no one would listen to him in time, he built a hidden failsafe deep within the old server system, tucked inside a decades-old printer driver that nobody still working at the company even knew existed, let alone the manager who'd inherited the corruption without ever learning its oldest secret: a small, silent program, timed to trigger only on nights someone was still logged in past midnight, printing a single flagged transaction whenever certain financial patterns repeated. No one else had ever stayed quite that late, quite that often, for it to notice. He never got to see it uncovered. In fact, records showed he'd passed away 2 years before I even found that first page. Quietly, the way he seemed to do most things, never knowing whether his last piece of work would matter to anyone at all. That part still sits with me some nights. He trusted the truth to a machine and a stranger he'd never meet, and he never got to hear thank you. But I like to think that someone patient enough, someone who actually paid attention to the quiet hours, would notice. That someone turned out to be me. The audit confirmed everything. The company recovered several $1 million that had been quietly siphoned away over the years. The manager who tried to wave it all away as a glitch faced serious professional and legal consequences. His calm smile replaced by something far less composed once the truth came out. And me, I wasn't transferred away after all. I was promoted, moved into a new role overseeing data integrity for the very department I once quietly organized in the dark. Tonight, I'm sitting at my desk again. Same warm lamp, same gentle rain against the window, same soft silence wrapping around the office like a blanket. My printer sits beside me, quiet and still. No hum, no blinking light, no secret page waiting to be found, because there's nothing left to expose. The truth already came out, gently, patiently, the same way it arrived each night, one small page at a time. I like to think that somewhere, that old engineer finally got his thank you, even if it came 2 years too late, and even if he never got to hear it himself. Not because there was a dramatic showdown or shouting or chaos, but because everything was solved the quiet way, the patient way, the way that lets you sleep soundly at night, knowing that even in the stillness, even in the dark, the truth was always being taken care of. I finish the last sip of my tea and reach over to switch off my desk lamp. That's when I notice it, a single sheet, resting quietly in the printer tray. I don't remember hearing it print. There's no highlight this time, no transaction code. Just a short line of text, and beneath it, the name of a company I've never worked for. I fold it gently, set it beside my mug, and smile into the quiet. Maybe some stories aren't finished being told, but that's a tale for another night. For now, the rain keeps falling, the office stays still, and I finally, peacefully, drift off to rest. Good night.